The alien girl did not scream. She did not attack. She did not run. She looked at the small metal symbol on his chest, and dropped to her knees. "This mark," she whispered, her voice shaking, "you are the one." And in that moment, the entire alien army behind her lowered their weapons. Commander Elias Ward had faced death before. He had seen cities burn under alien plasma fire. He had watched Earth unite for the first time in history because survival demanded it. But nothing prepared him for this. The battlefield was silent now. The sky above the broken moon of Kayla shimmered in violet storms. Human ships floated in defensive formation, shields cracked and nearly gone. Across the ash-covered valley stood the Illyrians, tall, silver-eyed beings whose technology bent gravity like cloth. Humanity was losing. Badly. Elias stood alone between the two armies. His armor was damaged. His helmet cracked. And hanging from his neck was something old. Something forgotten. A metal insignia. A simple symbol passed down from his grandmother. He had worn it for luck. That was all. Until now. The alien girl, clearly a commander by the markings on her luminous armor, remained kneeling before him. Her soldiers stared in shock. Elias slowly raised his hands. "Okay," he said carefully. "I'm going to assume this is better than being vaporized." The alien girl looked up at him. Her eyes were not hostile anymore. They were filled with something else. Reverence. "You carry the mark of the first architects," she said. Elias blinked. "I carry scrap metal from old Earth." She shook her head slowly. "No. That symbol is older than your species' memory. It is forbidden knowledge. It belongs to the creators of the star bridges." Now it was humanity's turn to be confused. In orbit, Admiral Rao watched the scene unfold on tactical screens. "Why have they stopped firing?" one officer whispered. "No idea," Rao replied. "But don't move a single ship." Back on the surface, Elias tried to think clearly. This had to be a trick. Aliens didn't just kneel. Especially not conquerors. "You're saying," Elias said slowly, "this little triangle with a line through it is important." The alien girl's voice trembled. "It is the sign of those who ended the age of collapse. Those who taught us how to survive when our sons were dying." Elias felt a strange chill. His grandmother had told him stories. About humanity surviving ice ages. Plagues. Wars. Extinction-level disasters. Humans were stubborn. Maybe that was their real symbol. He looked at the alien army. Thousands of warriors. Advanced weapons. Ships that could fold space. And yet they waited for this girl's command. "Why would your ancient heroes have a human symbol?" Elias asked. The alien girl stood slowly. "Because," she said softly, "the first architects were not Illyrian." Silence fell again. Elias' heart pounded. "That's impossible," he said. "Our records are clear," she replied. "They were a species driven by curiosity. Reckless. Emotional. Creative beyond logic. They built wonders without permission from the universe." She stepped closer. "They called themselves humanity." In orbit, human scanners suddenly lit up. Deep beneath the planet's surface, ancient machines activated. Structures older than the Illyrian civilization began to hum. Elias stared at her. "That's ridiculous. We barely mastered faster-than-light travel 50 years ago." The alien girl tilted her head. "Your current civilization is young. But your species has done this before." The ground trembled. A massive pillar of light shot into the sky behind Elias. Human and alien ships alike shook violently as energy waves spread across the system. Admiral Rao shouted, "Report." An officer stared at his screen in disbelief. "Sir, something just activated across the entire sector. Massive energy signatures. They match human genetic markers." Rao turned pale. "What?" Back on the surface, Elias felt the metal mark grow warm against his chest. The alien girl stepped back in awe. "The mark is a key," she whispered. "Only a human can awaken the star core. The valley began to split open. Ancient metallic structures rose from beneath the crust. Towers covered in symbols identical to the one Elias wore. The Illyrian soldiers dropped to one knee. Not in surrender. In respect. Elias swallowed hard. So, you invaded Earth because you thought we stole your sacred symbol. The alien girl looked ashamed. We believed you had desecrated our history. We did not know you were the inheritors. Inheritors of what? She looked toward the rising megastructure. Of the power that once saved the galaxy. The massive structure locked into orbit alignment. Energy rippled outward like a heartbeat. Illyrian warships suddenly lost weapons control. But human ships. Their damaged shields began to repair themselves. Systems rebooted. Fuel reserves stabilized. Admiral Rao stared at the impossible readings. It's rewriting our technology, he whispered. On the battlefield, Elias slowly understood. This wasn't alien superiority. This was human legacy. Buried. Forgotten. Waiting. He looked at the alien commander. What's your name? Seraph, she answered. Okay, Seraph, Elias said, forcing a shaky smile. I don't know what ancient version of humanity did all this, but if we saved your civilization once. He looked at the sky, where human ships were now glowing with renewed strength. Maybe we can do it again. For the first time, Seraph smiled. Then perhaps, she said, we were never meant to fight. Above them, the ancient star core pulsed brighter. And far beyond the system, something else awakened. Something that had destroyed civilizations before. Something that remembered the first architects. And feared them. The war was not over. It had only changed. And this time, humanity was not the underdog. The galaxy had not feared humanity for thousands of years. Because it had forgotten them. But now the star core was awake. And everything changed. Across distant systems, ancient sensors flickered to life. Civilizations that had never heard the word Earth suddenly received a signal buried deep in forbidden archives. Architect signature detected. On the broken moon of Kayla, Elias Ward stood beneath the towering structure of alien metal and impossible light. The star core floated above the valley like a second sun, spinning slowly, humming with power that felt alive. Human ships in orbit were no longer dying. They were evolving. Damaged hulls repaired themselves with streams of silver light. Weapon systems recalibrated beyond known limits. Energy shields hardened into crystalline layers never designed by modern engineers. Admiral Rao stared at her tactical screen. We're not upgrading it, she whispered. It's upgrading us. Seraph stood beside Elias, her expression no longer fearful, but concerned. You do not understand what this means, she said quietly. Then explain it, Elias replied. The architects were not just builders, Seraph said. They were defenders. When the Devourers came, they were the only species who refused to surrender. Elias frowned. Devourers. The ground trembled again. Above them, the star core projected images into the sky. Ancient memories. Stars collapsing. Entire fleets erased by waves of dark energy. Worlds turned to silence. And at the center of the chaos, human ships. Different from modern ones. Larger. Strange. Wild in design. Built without symmetry, but with purpose. Like artists designing weapons. They fought creatively, Seraph said. Not logically. Not predictably. The Devourers could calculate every civilization's strategy, except yours. Elias crossed his arms. That sounds like us. In orbit, alarms suddenly blared. Contact, a human officer shouted. Massive energy spike at the edge of the system. A tear opened in space itself. Not like warp travel. Not like a jump gate. This was violent. A wound in reality. From it emerged a shape darker than the void. Not a ship, but something organic and mechanical at once. A living weapon the size of a moon. And behind it, hundreds more. Admiral O felt her throat go dry. They are here. Back on the surface, Elias saw the sky darken as the Devourer fleet emerged. The star core pulsed harder. Sereth stepped back. They have come for the core. They remember the architects. Elias exhaled slowly. Good, he said. Sereth looked at him in disbelief. Good. Yeah, Elias replied. Because now we know who the real enemy is. Above them, the Devourers fired first. A wave of dark energy slammed toward the system. Human ships reacted instinctively, but not by retreating. The star core transmitted data directly into their systems. Not commands. Suggestions. Creative options. Admiral Rao stared at her screen as her tactical interface changed. New possibilities unfolded. Strange maneuvers. Risky angles. Impossible calculations. This is insane, one pilot muttered. Rao smiled slightly. Exactly. Human ships scattered, not in panic, but in chaos. Unpredictable chaos. They twisted through gravity wells, bounced energy off debris fields, and even overloaded their own engines to create blinding flares. The Devourer wave missed. Not because humans were stronger, but because they were unpredictable. On the surface, Elias felt the mark on his chest burn brighter. What is it doing? He asked. The core is syncing with you, Sereth replied. It needs a living architect. I'm not an architect. You are human. The Devourers launched another attack. This time, smaller vessels broke away, descending toward the planet. Illyrian forces hesitated. For centuries, they had relied on precision and order. But this enemy did not fight like that. Elias turned to Sereth. Your people fight with patterns, right? Yes. They calculate the best move. Yes. Stop doing that. She blinked. What? Do something stupid. She stared at him. He pointed upward. Look at them. They expect logic. So don't give it to them. In orbit, Admiral Rao suddenly laughed. All ships, she said over comms, permission granted to break every formation rule in the book. The fleet responded instantly. Human pilots dove straight toward the Devourer flagship, then split apart at the last second, firing at completely different targets. They sacrificed perfect efficiency for confusion. They used debris as weapons. They overloaded one cruiser on purpose, ejecting its core as a makeshift bomb. The explosion tore through 3 Devourer ships. On the surface, Elias grabbed a fallen Illyrian weapon. It didn't fit his hands well. Teach me how to fire this, he said. Sereth hesitated only a second, then showed him. Human soldiers began fighting beside Illyrians. But they didn't copy alien techniques. They improvised. One human rigged a damaged drone into a spinning shield generator. Another hacked an Illyrian gravity panel and turned it into a launch pad, throwing soldiers into the air for aerial strikes. The Devourers hesitated. For the first time in centuries, they encountered something they could not predict. Elias fired again, heart pounding. He wasn't stronger. He wasn't faster. But he was human. And humans were stubborn. In orbit, the star core pulsed again. A beam of light shot toward the Devourer flagship. Not destroying it, but scanning it. Learning it. Admiral Rao's console filled with data. It's analyzing them, she whispered. Just like we analyze enemies. Sereth looked at Elias with new understanding. This is what the architects did, she said softly. They turned curiosity into a weapon. Elias grinned despite the chaos. That's kind of our thing. The Devourer flagship began charging a massive weapon. Energy gathered at its core. If it fired, the planet would be erased. Sereth felt fear rise in her chest. We cannot stop that blast. Elias looked at the star core. Then at the alien weapon in his hand. Then at the battlefield. Yes, he said quietly. We can. She stared at him. How? Elias smiled, tired, bruised, but unbroken. We don't beat them by being stronger. The mark on his chest glowed like a small sun. We beat them by being human. Above them, human ships began a maneuver so reckless it made alien commanders gasp. They weren't retreating. They weren't attacking. They were doing something else entirely. Something no logical species would attempt. And the Devourers did not know how to respond. The galaxy was remembering. And somewhere deep within the Devourer flagship, an ancient intelligence calculated the probability of human victory. For the first time in its existence, the answer was not 0. The Devourers had studied thousands of civilizations. They had crushed empires built on logic. They had erased species that relied on perfect order. They had consumed worlds that believed strength alone was enough. But humanity was something else. And they were about to learn why. The Devourer flagship pulsed with dark energy, its core glowing like a dying star preparing to explode. The weapon charging inside, it could erase the entire system in one blast. Illyrian commanders calculated survival chances. 0.03%. Human commanders? They stopped calculating. They started creating. Admiral Areo stood in the center of the command deck, eyes fixed on the growing energy storm. All ships, she said calmly, prepare for synchronized maneuver Delta 5. A junior officer blinked. Delta 5 was scrapped. It's unstable. I know, Areo replied. On the surface, Elias felt the star core hum in harmony with the mark on his chest. He didn't see numbers or equations. He saw patterns. Possibilities. Ideas. The star core was not giving orders. It was asking questions. And humanity had always loved answering questions. Sereth stood beside him, watching human ships suddenly scatter in every direction. This is madness, she whispered. Elias smiled. Exactly. The human move. Instead of attacking the flagship directly, human ships began firing at empty space. Illyrian observers were stunned. They are missing, one shouted. But they weren't missing. They were redirecting. Each blast struck floating debris, shattered moons, broken satellites. Energy bounced and refracted through space like light through shattered glass. The Devourer weapon fired. A beam of annihilation surged forward and collided with a chaotic web of redirected human fire. The result was not an explosion. It was distortion. The beam bent, twisted, split into fragments. Instead of one system-ending blast, it scattered harmlessly across empty sectors. On the Devourer flagship, ancient algorithms struggled. Unexpected variables. Non-linear tactics. Improvised geometry. Probability of human victory rising. Unity ignites. But the battle was not over. More Devourer ships descended toward the planet. Illyrian forces prepared defensive formations. Perfect formations. Elias grabbed Sereth's arm. No patterns, he said. Break them. She hesitated, then did something no Illyrian commander had done in recorded history. She told her army to abandon formation. At first, confusion spread. Then something remarkable happened. Illyrian ships began adapting to human chaos. Instead of strict grids, they moved fluidly. Instead of precise firing lines, they experimented. Human and Illyrian pilots began communicating not through translation protocols, but through instinct. Cover me. Try this angle. Trust me. And they did. On the surface, humans and Illyrians fought side by side. A human engineer rewired an alien shield generator into a portable barrier. An Illyrian soldier used her gravity harness to launch 3 humans onto a Devourer walker's back. No one asked for permission. They just acted. The Devourers faltered. Because this cooperation, this messy, emotional, irrational unity, was not something they could model. The real weapon. Inside the Devourer flagship, the ancient intelligence made a final calculation. The star core was adapting. Human tactics were evolving faster than prediction models. Solution: eliminate the source. A focus strike targeted the star core itself. A dark spear of energy shot toward the glowing structure above Kayla. Sereth gasped. If the core falls, the system falls. Elias looked up. The mark on his chest burned painfully. The star core responded to him, not as a master, but as a partner. He understood suddenly. The core was never just a weapon. It was an amplifier. It amplified what humanity already had. Creativity, resilience, connection. He closed his eyes. Let's try something new, he whispered. He didn't give it an order. He shared a memory of Earth, of cities rebuilt after war, of people helping strangers during disasters, of humanity refusing to quit. The star core pulsed. Not brighter, warmer. The dark spear struck, and shattered against a shield that had not existed seconds before. A shield not made of energy alone, but of synchronized fleets. Human and Illyrian ships instinctively moved into place, forming a living barrier around the core. They didn't plan it. They felt it. For the first time in galactic history, two species fought as one. The Devourer's break. The Devourer flagship trembled. Its calculations spiraled. Human unpredictability plus alien adaptation equals exponential variables. The intelligence reached a conclusion it had never reached before. Retreat. The massive warship began pulling back toward the tear in space. One by one, the Devourer fleet followed. Not destroyed. Not annihilated. Driven away. The tear in space closed. Silence returned to the system. Aftermath. Smoke drifted over Kayla's surface. Wreckage floated in orbit. But the planet still stood. The star core dimmed to a gentle glow. Elias collapsed to one knee, exhausted. Sereth caught him before he fell. It is over, she said softly. For now, Elias replied. In orbit, Admiral Areo exhaled for the first time in minutes. Status. A communications officer stared at his readings. They're gone. Cheers erupted across the human fleet. Illyrian cities lit up in celebration. But Elias looked at the star core thoughtfully. They'll come back, he said. Sereth nodded. Yes. But now we are ready. He studied her face. Why did your people forget humanity? She hesitated. Because after the last war, the architects vanished. Your species disappeared from the stars. We believed you were extinct. Elias looked toward the distant blue glow of Earth far across the galaxy. We weren't extinct, he said. We were rebuilding. The truth. Days later, human scientists began studying the star core. It did not control humanity. It responded to them. It grew stronger the more humans collaborated. The more species cooperated. It was never about domination. It was about connection. The ancient architects had not built weapons. They had built alliances. The Devourers feared humanity not because humans were violent, but because humans inspired others to stand together. And unity was something the Devourers could never consume. The final scene. On a balcony grown from living crystal, Elias stood beside Sereth. The stars looked different now. Not distant. Not cold. Possible. You know, Elias said lightly, I only wore that mark because my grandmother said it brought luck. Sereth smiled. It did. He looked at her. So what happens now? She extended her hand. Now, we build something new. Together. Far beyond their sight, in deep space, Devourer scouts observed from the shadows. They transmitted one final message back into the void. Humanity has returned. Probability of galactic resistance. Increasing. Direct confrontation not advised. For the first time, the galaxy did not fear extinction. It felt hope. And somewhere on Earth, a child looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. The universe, remembering its old enemy. And its greatest defender. Leaned a little closer. Because humanity was not perfect. Not logical. Not predictable. But when pushed to the edge, Humans did what they always did. They adapted. They united. They created. And when the galaxy needed someone to stand against the dark, humanity answered. Again.